Let's begin the recording. Good. And we'll go back to our screen. So, the changing world of learning, it won't come as a surprise to any of you that the world of learning is changing dramatically. And it's being fueled by a couple of different things. One of the things it's being fueled by is the rise of just new mobile technologies. And almost regardless of age, I always tell the story to a group. My mother-in-law is 96. She's in a nursing home. They have the best broadband connection, I think, in the whole state of Connecticut. If you want high-speed Wi-Fi, you go to the nursing home, where the average age is probably 85 years old. And she's got her iPad, and she has only 2 apps on it. She has her Kindle app to read books, because you can make the books larger in size. And she has the Audible app so she can listen to the books. We took all the other apps off for fear that she would get lost in the digital world somewhere and never come back. But these gadgets and gizmos are available all ages, all the way across the lifespan. And as you'd see, it's being used in all kinds of settings, whether it's personal learning, community, education, at home. It's pretty remarkable, the shift that's happened. The gadgets are fueling some of this transition. That in this transition, everybody already has the tools for learning. The question is the software, if you will, for the hardware. Lee Rainey and Barry Wellman. Lee Rainey is at the Pew Internet and American Life Center. Barry Wellman's at the University of Toronto Net Labs. The two of them collaborated. This book is now 4 years old, and it's still just as current as it was 4 years ago, when they talked about this new social operating system that they call networked, that we now lived as networked individuals. In earlier era, we lived as community, in community. And they've talked about this transition towards networked individualism, that we are all networked people. So it's imagining yourself, and let's say you have a Facebook page. It's imagining yourself at the center of that page with your circles of relationships around you. And you have different communities of people that you network and relate to. That's what they're talking about. And they talk about this new way of operating, this new kind of society, if you will, being fueled by the internet revolution first, now 25 years old. The mobile revolution, which really only about a decade. I mean, in many ways, you can talk about the introduction of the first iPhone in 2007 as the beginning of the mobile revolution. There were flip phones before that, but nowhere near the connectivity of the iPhone. And the social media revolution. About 2/3 to 3/4 of the people who now access their Facebook page and access Facebook do it on a mobile device, a tablet or a phone. So internet, mobile, and social media revolution, it's transforming the way we communicate, interact, the way we structure society, so much so that information is now portable, personal, and participatory. And what's critical about that is that everybody literally has the ability to access whatever information they want, whenever they want it, wherever they want it. So that portable, personal, participatory. And people's expectation is now that everything is portable, personal, and participatory, including a church's faith formation. And I think that's the real critical transformation. So how is faith formation portable, personal, and participatory? Because most of us, not all of us, have come out of an era in which faith formation was literally nailed down to the floors of the church. It only happened at church, it happened in certain rooms, it happened in certain times. The upper left corner is the ad for the Khan Academy. If you've never been on the Khan Academy, tonight, just spend a 15, 20 minutes, sign up for it, it's all free. But Salman Khan started the Khan Academy almost a decade ago now. And just with a couple of videos that he was doing on YouTube for his nieces and nephews who wanted to learn algebra. Well, what happened is he went from algebra to geometry to calculus, and all of a sudden, everybody started accessing these videos on YouTube. That led to a grant from the Gates Foundation. He's got a great TED Talk. Just Google Salman Khan, Khan. And what they've developed is this online library and learning system of something like 6,000 or 7,000 videos that now school districts as well as individuals are using for education, and education from elementary right through university and continuing ed. So their line is, whoever you are, wherever you are, you only have to know one thing: you can learn anything. edX is another example, is this consortium of universities providing their curriculum online. So I thought I'd just show you their video. Make sure that you're hearing this, okay? So I just want to make sure it works, okay?
Can you imagine a world where everyone had access to higher education? It's a world of amazing possibility, but unprecedented challenge. The only way that we solve the problem is to unleash the human spirit. How is it that we can provide more people with access? Higher education is often marked by its exclusivity, by its selectivity. That model will not scale to the demands of the 21st century. Existing systems of education are insufficient to meet the demand. So a combination of technology and the best of the educational principles we've learned over hundreds of years is what's required in the 21st century to now extend the gifts of civilization much more and to harness the innovative power of people all around the world. The extension of smartphones and cell phones around the globe is happening faster than any technology uptake has ever occurred in the history. And that global network makes it possible for people to communicate with the highest possible fidelity and learn from one another in ways that they never have been able to learn before. At Arizona State University, what we seek to do is find as many ways as possible to extend that first year of higher education to as many people as possible, in as many different ways as possible.
Most students that start college do not graduate. That's a sad state of affairs. This program's intention is to change it.
Education is a right. edX's mission is to dramatically increase access to education for students all over the world. Imagine if a learner can take MOOCs without any admissions, without an application process, without worrying about the socioeconomic status or their GPA, and if they can pass the course. Then by paying a small fee, they can get credit. This will make college a lot more accessible and a lot more affordable than it is today.
This program is intended to eliminate those barriers, to take a high school student or someone else and provide for them the freshman year experience in the most advanced, technologically enabled, educationally enriched, deep learning experiences that humans have ever been able to develop through this partnership with ASU and edX.
With a partnership with ASU, they can also now earn credit. This new pathway to college will revolutionize education going forward.
Believe that you can achieve, change your own life, and maybe change the lives of many others. Become part of this experience. Earn this credit. Begin that journey.
You can go online to edX and just see all the possibilities, but it's digitally enabled, digitally connected education, but it's not a digital education. I mean, there's all kinds of other elements that are part of it. The underlying changes in education, I'm going to do a couple of videos to just kind of help see what's happening. So the next one's about the whole advance in terms of thinking about this as a network. And then two scholars are going to reflect on that who have been researching and exploring how people learn in this new networked way. This is the video for a new adventure funded by the MacArthur Foundation, people who do the Genius Grants, called LRNG, Learning. And I think you'll find the whole networked approach just fascinating. And then we'll talk about what the foundations of it are.
Welcome to the age of infinite possibilities. The entirety of human knowledge sits in the palm of your hand, and the sky is no longer the limit. It's only the beginning. The internet has connected our world and changed the way we think about everything. So what does learning look like redesigned for this connected age? Is it the current educational model, or is it a fully connected network of learning that transforms entire cities into learning landscapes? This is LRNG. LRNG is a national effort that networks learning opportunities throughout entire cities, creating an infrastructure that connects organizations, institutions, and businesses with online programming. LRNG is a conduit for young people to knowledge and expertise around their passions through openly networked connections to friends, mentors, and institutions, empowering the 21st century learner to co-design their future while providing cities and businesses with a civic-minded, diverse workforce with relevant skills and experiences. LRNG begins with a set of networked experiences, playlists, offering learners a range of both online and offline activities that tap into their individual areas of interest and prepare them for success in the connected age. These playlists consist of experiences, resources, and events, are designed to be flexible, remixable, and motivational, and are represented by digital badges in recognition of achievement. Support from key partnerships with cities, schools, companies, and mentors help LRNG provide a network that equips learners with previously untapped resources, access to adults and expertise, while fostering an environment where all young people have the opportunity to succeed. This is how learning is transformed from something they do into something they live. This is the evolution of learning. This is LRNG.
Every kid has an interest. Sometimes he doesn't know what it is, sometimes he can't articulate it, but every kid has an interest. That's a fundamental belief. If you can't buy into that, then you can't buy into the work that we do. In this day and age, the responsibility of libraries, museums, schools, after-school programs, the type of institutions we work with, is to not only help that kid identify the interest, but progress through that interest, become more advanced. It's just the same job as a tennis coach, the same job as a football coach. It's the academic coach. So I'm Diana Roden. I'm an organizational sociologist. I work at the Social Science Research Council. One of my projects right now is called the New Youth City Learning Network. It's in New York City. It's a consortium of about a dozen institutions. We're working together to create new digitally enabled learning activities and create new youth networks across the city. The notion of interest-driven learning is not a new concept. In fact, it's quite an old conversation. But it's a conversation that's been enlivened recently by two things: unprecedented technical infrastructure and new empirical evidence around learning. What we see in the kids that we're working with is they want an experience that means something to them personally. They want to be able to relate it into the context of their own lives or their own interests. Then they want to be able to reshape that story and tell it in the context of their own lives and interests. And then they want to be able to translate that into something they can do in the community, they can do, whether that's an online community or a physical community. So it's really it's on consumption, production, participation. Well, what does this mean? I mean, we had to start there. So part of the reframe was, we're talking about learning, not education. What's that difference? We're talking about digital media. We're not talking about big technology. We're talking about learner-centered rather than institutional-driven. So there's a lot of sort of ground leveling to do in terms of just basic understanding of what this transformation might mean. We're trying to get them to think about what happens if you take your assets around biodiversity, for example, and start putting them out there in a way that a kid can incorporate them in a narrative that he or she finds personally motivating, personally relevant, personally interesting. And then ways in which they might be able to do dynamic remodeling around that asset, dynamic mapping around that asset, dynamic storytelling. Because, you know, part of the opportunity here is learning the content, which is very much the 20th century idea around education. But in 21st century, it's learning the tools and the skills of remaking that content and becoming the creator and the producer. We have a mandate, we have a mission. You know, we want to go through this process, at the end of which we can demonstrate what digital media learning tools can do. We started on the edges. These are institutions that are central to a city, but not necessarily central to a kid's life right now. They're more flexible. Schools are highly structured around standards and assessment right now, so it's very difficult, even where there's a will, it's very difficult for a teacher right now in a formal school setting to think about, how do I incorporate this mobile-based geolocative game into my classroom? You can't even use mobile phones in New York City classrooms right now. Whereas if you come to a place like the Natural History Museum or you go to the Wildlife Conservation Society, not only do they have the assets to teach about that subject matter, but they can use the tools and they can practice and demonstrate the tools. We don't have enough positive examples of what this means. We have a lot of discourse around it, but we don't have a lot of concrete positive examples of how do you do this. And that is our job right now. We have to put that out in the world so that the chancellors and the principals and the teachers understand that this isn't just about media, arts, and crafts, but it's about using the tools to get to the content and the skills and the competencies that they value.
The march of the formal educational curriculum is at a very different pace from how kids' interests develop and the ways in which they need to explore and develop their interests that are based on their own choices about what they want to look at and what they want to learn. And so if you have a system that's telling kids exactly what to do and how to pace it, that doesn't value exploration and self-initiated inquiry, then you're not building in kids the capacity to make effective choices themselves about how to learn and the pace and the sequencing of how they should learn and the ways they find supports for it. So kids not only have to learn how to nurture and support interests and expertise development based on what they want to do and accomplish in real life, but they have to learn how to build their own social relationships, how to find others with expertise, how to recruit mentors. Now, the formal educational system doesn't teach kids how to do that because they deliver it all packaged in advance. One of the things that the internet has handed us is a complete abundance of knowledge, expertise, and social connectivity. And it's like we have an abundance of riches that in the past used to be fairly scarce. And we used to depend on experts and teachers and classrooms to deliver expertise and knowledge to our kids. Those things are still really good sources of knowledge, but you can also find it on the internet in a way that really wasn't possible a generation ago. And so we used to have sort of capacity bottlenecks where, you know, if you wanted to learn math or if you wanted to learn science or anything that was kind of hard and not just lying around in your everyday life, then you had to go to school or you had to go to the library. There were limited places. And now we don't have that problem, but our institutions of education still act as if we do. what's so different about the connected learning model and the more conventional notions of education is the fact that education isn't bound to particular institutions anymore. It happens everywhere. We already know that most of the learning that people do doesn't happen in the classroom. We're so used to now giving responsibility for learning to professionals, instead of looking at how it's part of the fabric of our interactions with everybody, with our kids every day, with our colleagues, with our, people in our community. And I think that's the hardest thing, because it also forces people to take responsibility and ownership. There's so many people in any environment who have knowledge and expertise. So now the problem is not how do you package it and deliver it. The problem is effective matchmaking. So how does a kid find that mentor or that peer who is going to introduce them or support them in developing their interests, making their interests relevant, developing a sense of purpose? And it's not about actually finding the information anymore. So I think the model that we're trying to develop with connected learning is really to say, how can we use the capacity of these network resources, these social connections, to bring people together who want to learn together? I think our greatest aspiration is that this becomes the kernel of a set of ideas that enable a lot of people in a wide range of spheres and fields to take it up and do something with it. So that's the whole point of it, right? Is not just to have the ideas, but to have things that are actionable, and actionable by lots of people, not just the experts, not just the teachers, not just the people designing fancy technologies. So what's great about the connected learning model is it's something everybody can participate in. It's not about being affiliated with an institution. It's not about having a very specific kind of expertise. It's not about being a math genius. It's about expertise that's widely distributed in our society and culture, and the fact that anybody can help somebody else get better at something. The great side benefit of people connecting around interests and learning is the fact that it fosters social connection and well-being, because people like to connect with one another, and they like to connect with people who share interests. It creates a sense of fulfillment, belonging, and purpose, psychological well-being, when people have connections that support the kinds of identities that they really value. And so it definitely has a side effect of building community and intergenerational relationships, which possibly is more important than the actual expertise or knowledge being cultivated.
So you got a short course in the transformations happening in the learning world. And if you pick that up, especially from Diana Roten and Nina Ito, you get these kinds of characteristics, that learning is now immersive, it's multimedia, it's multisensory, it's highly visual, it's participatory, it's experiential, it's creation-centered. Yeah. I like the way in which Diana Roten talks about, we're moving from consumption to participation to creation. Kids creating it, remaking it. We live in a world with an abundance of content. And all of this is true of faith formation. We have an abundance of content. So we used to have scarcity and therefore needed Sunday school. It's the only place to access the content. Not anymore. It's now available on demand. It's mobile, and it's 24/7. So the shift that's happening is profound. And then we have this range of digital media that's now available. When you look at this list, it's just so many of these things are just in the last half dozen, 10 years. So this just explosion in digital media, and a lot of these examples are all in the faith formation world. So the combination of the transformation of learning and the explosion of digital media that's available, these three are the big mega shifts that are happening. We're shifting from education to learning anywhere, anytime. And you saw one of the threads between Diana and Mimi's presentations were interest-based, student-centered, interest-based. Well, that's the focus on learning as opposed to educating. The shift from consumption of information to participatory learning. Again, everything that's going on in the learning sciences applies to the faith formation world. And the shift from institutions which provide learning, schools, churches, to networks. A variety of people, events, experiences that are wrapped around the interest of people. So in an earlier era, we wouldn't have been thinking about networks because simply we wouldn't have had access to all those resources. Well, the access problem has gone away. The affordable problem's gone away. The anytime, anywhere problem has gone away because we now have that instant access. And it's transforming learning, whether it's edX, the Khan Academy, or the kinds of things you saw in the two video presentations. This is not a new concept. So this is a 1975 picture, if you will, from Malcolm Knowles, often called the father of adult education in the United States. It was a 1975 book he wrote called The Adult Learner. And in it, he talked about a network approach to learning, but it was in the analog world. So what you notice here, it's people and organizations providing the learning. There's no digital piece in 1975. But the concept was the same. The person at the center, guided by educational planning consultants and educational diagnosticians. I will want to be a diagnostician. It just sounds cool. And you develop, the concept was a lifelong learning resource center. Well, we would call that a faith formation network or a learning network, enhanced by a digital ability to make it available 24/7. And everything in blue are resources for that learning. So the planning consultants, well, the diagnostician would help an adult diagnose his or her learning needs, whether it's at work, personal interests, etc. And then a planning consultant would utilize his or her expertise to connect them to where those resources exist. So the whole concept was a networked approach to learning, but in the analog world. In the digital world, as I'll get to in a minute, it changes. So this is from KnowledgeWorks, and it's, even though I'm not going to go through every one of these circles, what's fascinating here is these kind of concepts. If you look at 1 o'clock, learners and their families will create individualized learning playlists reflecting interests, goals, and values. Can you imagine bringing that over into a congregational setting? These playlists will include a whole variety of ways to learn. Whatever the path, personalization will become the norm. So in the old days, Sunday school was a one-size-fits-all. It was one curriculum, whether it was children, youth, or adult Bible, or adult Sunday school, it was a one-size-fits-all. This is a one-size-fits-one approach because you can customize because you have the network. And notice at like 5 o'clock, a wide variety of digital networks, platforms, and content resources will help learners and learning agents connect and learn. So the whole approach, and I won't go through each of the circles, but look at the center. These changes point the way towards a diverse learning ecosystem in which learning adapts to each child instead of each child trying to adapt to the educational program, which is the way most congregational educational programs are designed. The learner has to adapt to the program. The program rarely adapts to the learner. In the digital era, adaptation becomes easy, and interest-centered learning becomes easy. But we have to move away from a linear sequential approach to learning to a network approach to learning. So, if you knew the following things, that people have the technology for learning, they already got the gadgets, that people are already connected with each other and they're all reachable, even those who are spiritual but not religious and unaffiliated, that people have time in their busy lives to connect, participate, and interact in online experiences and communities. I know people say they don't have time, But if you actually did a time study and you asked them, how many hours do you spend connected to people, Facebook, online, whatever, you'd be amazed. Okay, so people do have time in their lives to connect and participate, and they're already doing that. People are already engaged in learning online, certificate programs, learning experiences at work, watching YouTube videos, whatever it might be, learning how to, to do a home improvement. They're learning already online. People are already engaged with others online in spiritual experiences. The number of people who access spiritual resources online, prayer resources, things like Pray As You Go, they're just hugely popular. People have access to an abundance of content today in all types of media formats that are available 24/7 and often are free. If you knew all these things, how would you do faith formation? Would you organize a weekly Sunday school between 9:30 and 10:30, between the 8 o'clock worship service and the 11 o'clock worship service? I don't think so. But we haven't adapted to the reality of how people are learning today and the ways in which they're already doing things and the technologies that are available to them. So what would it be like if, and then I'll do this piece and we'll stop and we'll talk about it. What would it be like if you thought not linear sequential, not buying the latest curriculum that's available from whatever publisher, okay? No matter, even if it sings and dances on your desk, just moving away from that and started thinking not linear sequential, age graded, but thinking about wrapping networks of faith formation, learning, and experiences around people. It might look like Mazel Tov. This is a great example. This is Mazel Tov was organized by Jewish synagogues and community centers in the Denver, Boulder area. I want to show you the website. I'm hoping, let's see, where is Mazel Tov? Right here. Can you all see that? You should be seeing a website. Do you see a website? No, you do? Okay, Mazel Tov. Okay, so this is Mazel Tov. Its goal is this. Let me make it a little bit bigger. Perfect. Mazel Tov offers easy access to information about Jewish life for young families in the greater Denver and Boulder, and big discounts to make it easier to try new Jewish experiences. If I change the page, are you seeing this next programs page? No. All right, hold on a second. I can make that work. I have to call up the actual PowerPoint. How about now? Okay, so just take a look at what they're offering. So there are 106 programs or activities that if you're in the Denver, Boulder area and you're looking for Jewish experiences for your children, look at what you could participate in. So we got a lot of play and learn classes, Our Turn to Learn Interfaith Family Study, an 18-month developmental milestones from toddlers to classroom, early childhood center, art projects, library story, baby naming. There's 100 and something of these, 106 of these. A lot of baby naming. But all of these, you notice, they're all provided by a particular Jewish congregation, synagogue, educational program, Jewish school. They have developed a network of Jewish learning experiences for families in the Denver and Boulder area. This is pretty remarkable. This is a network. This is a network approach. Connections, and of course, the best thing about the whole thing is that parents connect with each other in all these experiences. Of course, they've got a Facebook page where the connections can happen. All their partner organizations. They've got a whole section on just parenting resources. All of these are linked. If they want to go deeper, they can go deeper. It's pretty, of course, they have to have a blog. So they have a blog that all the families who are part of this network across congregation or across synagogues and across centers can connect with. This is a great example how one congregation does not have to go it alone. All right, let me get back to all of you. I'm hoping you can see this, okay? This is the PowerPoint again? No. All right, what happened to the PowerPoint? Going back and forth sometimes. How about now? You should see Family Faith Formation Network, yes? Okay, good, all right. So, Mazel Tov Network. This is, we're gonna go in depth on these in a few minutes, but this is Families of the Center. This is a website that I created that matches up with the Families of the Center Faith Formation book, but it's an example of a network approach to family faith formation. The goal being, there's all kinds of experiences we provide families. We don't need a one-size-fits-all anymore. We can offer them a variety because we have digital resources in all of these areas. This is the adult faith formation one. Same thing, a network of adult faith formation experiences. If a church wanted to do adult faith formation by next Monday, they could. Because all of the resources in here, adult living, discovering faith, faith enrichment, scripture, seasons of the year, service, spiritual life, Sunday worship, they all exist already. It's just making them available to the adults in our community so they know that those possibilities exist so they can match their interest with a faith-forming experience. We can also put all of our existing on-campus programs into this network, as well as small group experiences, online experiences. This becomes the network as opposed to the program. This is an example of a church I was working with. I just did a little sample website for them. This is a whole community. So the first one was family, second one was adult. This one's the whole community. And it's organized around these 4 big themes. They're going to do a theme every month. They're a sermon-based church. So the scriptures and the sermon each month will focus on gratitude, generosity, service, and peace. And they have another 12 months of themes they're working on. And then, so Sunday worship will be able to access the scriptures, the readings, a podcast of the sermon. And then there'll be activities through the month on gratitude, for example, for adults, for young adults, for teens, and I'm sorry, this is family and children, got cut off, but family and children. So this is the whole community network. So anything can be networked. And this is, the center of this network is Sunday worship and the themes. And surrounding that are adult, young adult, teen, and families with children activities that deepen that experience, that connect the Sunday to the rest of the week. So there's just all kinds of ways to think about a network approach as opposed to a programmatic, linear, sequential approach because people's needs are so diverse. So, I mean, the first half of the course was all about, here comes everybody, all the ages and generations, a diversity of religious and spiritual identities, a diversity of family structures. There's no way an individual church can program, I'll program for that diversity, whether it's families, children, teens, adults, but you could develop a network around that diversity. So Mazel Tov's a great example. Definitely go online and just have some fun with it. This is familiesatthecenter.com. This is seasonsofadultfaith.com. I'll show you all these examples in a minute. This is just only on the slide, just to give you an example of that. So we're being challenged to think like a network. And here's some of the ways to start thinking like a network. A network allows for a variety of relationships, content, experiences, and resources. So the reason why it's digitally connected and digitally enhanced or digitally enabled is it's not about digital, it's that fosters relationships, large groups, small groups, at home, one-on-one. And it's a way to access the content, experiences, and resources. We're going to use new methods, more immersive, more multimedia, more multisensory. We're going to use new formats. One of the things that, unfortunately, we're still trying to make work is regular sequential participation in church programs. And I ask groups all the time, well, how's that working for you? You know, so if the regular Sunday worship attendance now is twice a month from 4 times a month, just, weekly, just 2 decades ago, people are now engaged episodically in church. I would contend episodically in life, not just in church, but they make episodic engagement experiences. They'll give you an hour or 2. They'll give you a month, but it's around episodic events, engagements, and experiences. Well, we need to start programming around episodic participation as opposed to linear sequential participation. People's lives have just changed. We're now talking about micro-learning. This is the latest, I think it's YouTube, enhanced, so to speak, is that if you remember a while back, YouTube videos, when they first started, were much longer than they are now. They might have been, 15 minutes or even 20 minutes. Today, the average YouTube video is 3 to 5 minutes. And so we're thinking much more of micro-learning. Corporations are developing 5, 10, 15-minute modules of training for their employees. So it's kind of, somebody called it snackable learning, small little pieces of learning. It's on demand, meaning it's always available. So when you have a need, we're available. So you don't have to conform to us. We're available for you. It's mobile and it's 24/7. We got the abundance of new digital media and platforms, multiple environments. People can learn on their own. I mean, what was so interesting, I think it was Mimi Ito's presentation, is that this informal learning, that most people's learning menu is primarily informal as opposed to formal structured learning settings. So we learn because we read a book, we watch a video, we do a movie, those kinds of things. And so we partake in a lot of things that are not structured formal learning settings. So we can learn on our own, self-directed, independent, mentored. You can do a whole lot more with mentoring. The home is a learning center. That's the focus of course number 3, the family at the center of learning and faith formation. Small groups, large groups, church-wide, intergenerational, that's the focus of the next course. Out in the community. We don't think about in the community as a setting for learning, but a lot of the missional faith formation we'll explore happens out in the community. And then in the world, in physical settings and online settings. All of that happens in both of those settings. And then we're thinking now of what I call multi-platform learning. So multiple versions of one program. So design a program, and this is just smart in terms of churches. Design a program once and offer it in multiple formats and environments. So for example, a gathered program that you're doing for Advent. So let's say you're doing a 3-session wonderful Advent program around the new lectionary, okay? The new lectionary year, whether it's Revised Common Narrative, well, Narrative would start in September, Catholic lectionary, and you want to introduce people to it. So you have a wonderful 3-session. The dilemma is when you do it at church, you have to give a fixed time, which rules out all kinds of people. You know, a wonderful 3-week program, what if you recorded it? What if those 3 presentations were now on video, that you could take those and cut those and work those into individual study, or with a little study guide into small group study. So you take in one program and you now offer them multiple platforms around people's time, interest, and availability. So we start thinking like a network, not like a linear sequential program. So we start building experiences that are networked experiences. So we have what I'll call pods or modules of learning experiences. In each of those, I'll get back to the processes. In each of those, we offer playlists of learning. So I love that concept. And people are familiar with playlists, whether you're on Spotify or iTunes, or people create playlists. So a playlist integrates a variety of ways to learn, different environments, online, physical, but the key in the playlist is it's not one size fits all. Some people will be drawn to a spiritual practices course. Other people will do an online retreat, but providing a menu of things around a common focus, in this case, spirituality, begins to help us think we can offer something for everybody in terms of spirituality. Well, go back here and realize I've got all of these areas to work with in terms of offering variety. You don't need to start with all these areas, but I'm just rounding out the picture because this is the 8 faith-forming processes in action, where it's really hard to do all of this in any one program or programs. It's not that hard on a network because I can offer a variety of things because I don't have to do all the teaching or facilitating or designing. I do more curating and connecting. We'll talk about how to set up a network, but it's simply the 8 faith-forming process and life stages and the rest all integrated into my network. And the website becomes the platform where the network pieces all come together. The playlists become a way in which I can program each of those pods, those modules, those content areas. We'll talk more in a minute about being digitally enabled, digitally connected. This gives me a whole nother way to think about how I can offer one program in multiple formats or diversify my offerings from fully online to gathered with online components. We'll look at each of those because I think these are really practical programming tools. So let me stop. You got the kind of general idea. Let me show you just one of these website examples. Where's my... So I'm just going to show you Seasons of Adult Faith Formation to kind of get at what, and then we'll go in depth on it in a minute. Notice menus are basically those big circles of rich content for people. You kind of start with, I had really an idea what exactly people want, but if I offer enough on the cafeteria table, the buffet table, around their needs, they'll find something that works for them. And then playlists. And so this is my take on a playlist. There'll be things for adult living, and there's more than that online. Discovering faith, of faith enrichment opportunities, scripture, and I'm trying to do multiple formats, online, physical, small group, large group, one-on-one, on your own. But you can program each of these with existing content. So designing a network, learning how to curate resources, experience, and people, and then designing a digital platform, that becomes the new skill set for us as faith formation leaders. So these become the playlist for people, and to invite them to participate in as much as they have both time and interest in. And I can do this, and you'll see in a minute when we get into the design, I would offer a new season of programming 3 times a year: fall, winter, spring, and then summer. And some of the things will be consistent, and some of the things will be brand new. But that's what I'm saying. And I think I could offer adult faith formation on Monday morning in any church, just using these as examples of things that already exist, even if I had no existing programming at my church. I could build things around worship. I can find service opportunities. I know I've got tons of spirituality content. And I've got Advent coming, which would be a bonus year in terms of digital content. So when we're thinking about networks and websites, the website is simply the delivery, the carrier, the connector for the network. So let me stop for a minute and make sure you're all still breathing. Initial questions and thoughts. We're going to unpack this. I'm going to give you examples. We'll talk about how to design a network and how to design a digital platform. But initial thoughts, theory, background, approach.
I like the approach. It was what I taught. I taught gifted kids, and so a lot of that, I was able to take them out of their own classroom. So it was very much self-directed. They knew, we formed a rubrics. They knew the skills that had to be incorporated. Basically that's the stuff you would hope that they learn. But their vehicle for sharing that they knew that knowledge was totally up to their interest. And when you talk about individualized learning, again in education, you see that time and again in your special needs classes.
Yeah.
They have focused the learning using the interest and the abilities of those students. So in some part of our educational system, you do have that one-on-oneness that allows a little bit of more wiggle room towards the interest of the student.
Yep. Other thoughts?
I was going to, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Okay. It's very interesting. I kept thinking about, I'm on a candidacy team for our Senate. And one of the things that I remember 20 years ago, when I went to seminary, is a very linear track. You all started at the same time. You all went on internship at the same time, field place, whatever it was each year. And, certainly were advantages to that. But seminary is very different now. It has to be. It has had to change because of the cultural shifts of the clientele it's dealing with, if you will. Even if the students come right out of college, they are oftentimes married. The spouse has their career objectives. They have to think about, each person, how is this going to work for them? And it's funny because we always hear of technology being that which separates us from one another, and it certainly has that capacity. But by the same token, what I'm discovering is that because we have to do these individual programs, we really have to get to know these folks a lot more intimately. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot more work, in a good way. But, you have to really think about what is going to work for him or her, given who they are and their needs. And so the programs that we're starting to develop are shifting, dramatically. The seminaries are shifting dramatically because they can't survive in the old model. Yeah. So it's really quite interesting. I think the seminaries are beginning to wake up to the fact that they have to do a lot of what you're saying already. I find that really interesting.
Yeah.
The way it was.
Others?
One thing that interests me is as a small congregation, what we're seeing is the families aren't there on Sunday mornings to have the hour-long education hour anymore. And if we can give them ways to do that at home or on vacation or wherever they happen to be, baseball games, I'd like to give them that opportunity, because what I'm hearing pretty much across the board is it's not that we don't want the church, because we do. It's, we don't have time on Sunday mornings anymore. So this digital platform is a good way to give that to them.
Yeah, part of our goal is, we do want people on Sunday morning, but that will happen because we create a good relationship with people. So how do we meet people in their daily lives with faith-forming experiences that builds a relationship that makes Sunday fit into a bigger pattern? The problem with Sunday in so many congregations is it's a standalone experience. There aren't a whole variety of things that surround it that make Sunday fit into a bigger picture. And what we're trying to do is say, how do I work with people in their daily life experience, since I can't be there? And I have such a small slice of people's time and attention. It's small. When you think about the amount of time, even over the course of a year, of the most active people in your church, how many hours do you have of their year? It's a small, tiny percentage. It wasn't always that. When I was growing up, church was kind of the center of our lives in many ways. And you lived at church, so to speak. We have such a small slice. The question for faith formation is, you can't do good faith formation with a small slice of people's time. It takes time to be a disciple. It takes practice to be a disciple. It takes reflection to be a disciple. So when we're thinking about that, how do I increase the amount of contact I have with people? How do I build relations with them? How do I increase my share of their weekly time, even if I can't increase their share of Sunday morning time? See, that becomes, for me, that's the big issue. And learning is a way to do that in this format that just allows us to use learning as a way to build relationships. So it's not just about the content. It's so we build a relationship with people who come to value what we do and value the community, and meet people perhaps outside of church that translates back into church. It's pretty missional in a sense.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
Observation. You were talking earlier about episodic involvement, okay? And yet at the same time, that tension of recognizing that true discipleship takes time. So are you saying that the episodic involvement is a way of gathering people because of the attention span, whatever you want to call it, that we're limited, we're used to going bing, hitting people with the networking so that they can say, okay, instead of me having to give 20 hours to one thing, I'm giving, in essence, a combination of time to spiritual formation. It just looks like it's an episodic thing. Mm-hmm. Is that essentially what you're saying?
I mean, so think about Vacation Bible School as one big episodic experience. Because for some people, you don't see them for 51 more weeks.
Exactly.
Okay? So the question is, I want them to participate in Vacation Bible School, even if that's the only time I see them all year, because I want to take that experience, and because I've got tools now, I want to extend that into 51 weeks during the year of my being in contact with them. Okay, not trying to drag them out to church on Sunday, but my being in contact and relationship with them. So I want to take that episode and I want to expand. I want to give it legs. I want to expand the possibilities. I want to deepen it. I want to enrich it. I want to hear their questions. So
missional.
It's more missional, but it's a whole way of learning. So if I think about during the year, we have lots of contact with people. It's just not linear sequential. It's just not weekly. And so how do I wrap faith formations these episodes? How do I wrap more learning around those episodic experiences? And some of them are going to happen not at church, but at home. So how do I take a celebration of a ritual or an experience with them and broaden that out? How do I take something going on in the life, a milestone going on in the life of the family, and being able to be present to them where they are? How do I take the transition from parenting children to waking up in the morning and having a middle schooler? How do I help that experience? Because they're not going to come to church for a parenting workshop. They have a middle schooler. Life has just changed in front of them, So how do I reach them where they are with these micro-learning, episodic kinds of experiences that they can watch a video, contact people, join a Facebook group for weary parents of middle schoolers, okay? All of a sudden, I'm now present in their life in a way that I'm not going to spend any time trying to grab them and find the right day to drag them out to church, because that's not going to work. But I'm building a relationship. And that relationship means it can be a two-way street. They may want to be able to be connected to these people because of the network, because of the experiences that we're having. I'll share some examples. One of them is a webinar example that a number of churches have launched into. Webinars for parents. But spliced into the year are 3 gatherings for parents between the monthly webinars. Well, because you're building a relationship, people want to come together. People always want to come together. It's social. And if you feed them, they'll be lining up to come together, okay, and provide babysitting. I mean, think parents. Somebody's going to feed me. They can provide babysitting. I don't care what else you do, So in that sense, there are so many opportunities for us if you just think episodic events and experiences, not how do I get them there on a regular basis. Let them choose to be regular. That's not my job.
Well, I agree with you. I think that's the way to go. Here's the issue, and maybe you're going to address this. How do you get the congregation to shift in that to that mode of thinking? I think because you're talking about going outside those four walls, doing the missional, the whole approach is very different, and
Sure.
from what we value and what we're attached to, which is often the building and the way it used to be done, et cetera, et cetera. So going from that shift of saying moving from an attractional model to
Right.
a missional model.
Right.
And that, because I think what you're talking about can be done, but
Oh, yeah.
But-
you bring the congregation along with you.
But if they are already your congregation and they're showing up on a fairly regular basis, we can enrich their lives by doing some of the extra stuff.
Sure.
But if they are already sitting in your pews, part of that is they're not the problem in a sense, because part of the problem are all the other people that maybe only come on Christmas and Easter that we're not feeding the rest of the year. And maybe we can reach them. I mean, in addition to doing beneficial things to the people in the pews, but if the people are coming to the pews, there is something there for them. We have to build on it.
I don't disagree with that. But the people who don't come to church are not the problem. They just have a different way of approaching their spirituality, and we're not hooked into that. So it becomes the people here are being fed, so they come to the church. Well, people can be fed outside the church. And when I think about the early church, you know, Paul did not, I mean, he established, wherever he went, he established churches, but he was always constantly on the move to bring that message.
Sure.
And to help people where they were. We have a tendency to say, we are here, we're going to track you here. And that's okay for the people who were there. That's great. But there's also that mission field that's outside, and they're not the problem. They, you know, they are people who I think need to experience faith formation in a way that's geared to who they are, where they are. And when I say how do we bring the congregation along, what I mean is how do we help the congregation to see that as part of their mission?
Mm-hmm.
That their mission isn't just to bring people into the church, but to go out and to, with no reward whatsoever, their numbers won't go up, their money won't go up, but part of their mission is to go forth and do ministry with people where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Not as a problem, but recognizing the landscape has changed, the harvest, if you will, has changed.
Mm-hmm.
We're harvesting a little bit differently.
Sure.
You know, we're not using the same tools. So how do we do that? How do we help the congregation see that as part of their mission? So you're not the lone pastor or the lone group or whatever doing it all.
But I'm glad we have 2 years to keep on working on that, because that's the right issue. Laura, you had something.
Yeah, Pam, I just wanted to say trust the Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
This is not perfect yet, but about 2 months ago, I started putting daily thoughts on our Facebook page. Simple thoughts that are just around the sermon to come. And the group that's really picked up on it have been the homebound folks. And they're telling their friends who still get to the building on occasion, and it's starting to get out among that group. And my experience is that once you've got that group behind you, you're going to be able to go far and fast. So, like I said, it's just starting to take hold now, but it is that generation, surprisingly, that's picking that up, and they're really enjoying that. Also, some of the families, I put the questions that I send home with the children. I call them the Monday morning questions. You talk about them when you're in the car on the way to soccer, things like that. I put those on the Facebook page, and adults have been answering those questions too. So the conversations have gotten started slowly, but as the word gets out, it's getting bigger and bigger.
Here's the best thing about a network approach. Like, so sometimes when we're doing a program approach, you've got to stop something in order to do something new. The network approach, you integrate things. So it's not about we're going to stop things or we're going to start doing worship online. No. You want to integrate that into your network. And so part of the thing that when we're speaking about this, it's we're going to take the very best of what we're doing and we're going to expand that to connect with people. And so I often approach people on this with the models we've used in the past worked. We're now in a new era, and those models have to adapt to that era. And the things that we're currently doing that are working become part of our network, whether it's for adults or families or teens or the whole community. We're going to integrate those, but we're going to go beyond that because we want to reach out to engage. And this is what I would say to the adult community. Your children and your grandchildren who aren't here on Sunday. We want to build relationships with them. We want to build relationships with people who have left us literally, and are just out there. We want to connect with them. And all of that will strengthen our community as well as strengthen their lives. So just keep on figuring out how to reframe it for people, that it's not about what they're losing. They're not losing anything. It's about what we could be gaining. So I always talk about the benefits and the upside to changing the model. Not only that, but the people who are already participating in our church are going to have a better experience and more of them. So that's part of the approach of network learning. It's not it is that one size fits all. We're going to offer a variety of things.
Thank you.
Okay, let's do this. It is almost 30 minutes after the hour. We're about halfway through. Let's take a 10-minute break. So let's be back at 20 minutes of the hour. So it's 30 after. Let's be back in 10 minutes, and we'll get into the practical dynamics of how you make this happen.
June.